in 1865 and 1868 after the Civil War. Let's examine the 13th Amendment first. It reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States." Now, slavery is a situation where one person has lost his freedom to another. A synonym of slavery is involuntary servitude, meaning when a person is forced to serve another without the first person's consent. Involuntary means that the person does not want to do what he's being forced to do. But notice that by these two definitions, voluntary servitude is permissible. That means that we are free to voluntarily become a slave anytime we want. Only involuntary servitude is not permitted. If you want to become a slave, you are free to do so. Now, with that understanding, we can now discuss the 14th Amendment. That one reads, "All persons." Notice that the word is changed from people to persons. We now have to discuss the difference between a person and being a people. We used to be called people, and now we are called persons, and there is an important distinction between the two words. I will not spend a lot of time on this, but I will show you that there is a difference. People are sovereign, living under God-given rights. Persons are individuals living under government-granted privileges. I have to now define the two words right and privilege. A right is the ability to act morally without asking permission. A privilege is the ability to act morally, but only after permission has been granted. When a person is sovereign, he does not need to ask permission to morally make his decisions on how he runs his life. So the 13th Amendment makes voluntary servitude permissible. So we have lost our sovereignty under this new word, persons. A sovereign would be a free man whose rights were God-given and unalienable, which means that only the grantor can take them away. Rights are granted by God, and only God can take them away. No government, no majority, no minority, no one can take them away. But more importantly, a privilege is not unalienable. It can be taken away by the person or entity granting it. Now let's go back to the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. If we were declared to be citizens of the United States after the 14th Amendment was passed in 1868, what were we before the 14th Amendment? We were citizens of a particular state of the Union, and only that. You were a citizen of the state in which you were born or where you were residing after birth. You were a citizen of Arizona if you were born in Tucson. But notice that in the 14th Amendment, there are two ways to become a citizen of the United States, meaning a citizen of the tyrannical government of Washington run by Congress. You can be born in Washington, D.C., or you can become naturalized in Washington, D.C., meaning the United States. A naturalized citizen is one who is voluntarily asked to become a citizen. For example, a citizen of France leaves his country and comes to the United States. He wishes to become a naturalized citizen, one who voluntarily renounces his citizenship in another country to become a citizen of the second country. So once you are acknowledged as a citizen of the United States, you must agree to their jurisdiction over your person. They were sovereign people who had no master, who lived by right. We are now citizens of the United States who live by privilege. Actually, the 14th Amendment affords you dual citizenship. It continues. All persons born or naturalized are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So the citizens of the United States have dual citizenship. They are citizens of Washington, D.C., and they are citizens of the state wherein they reside. That means that the 14th Amendment did not eliminate the citizenship of the state citizen. It added the citizenship of Washington, D.C. So the question is, how did we become a citizen of the United States? If we were not born in Washington, D.C., and if we did not voluntarily become a naturalized citizen of the United States. Those who wrote the 13th and 14th Amendments needed us to volunteer to become U.S. citizens, to trade our rights for government-granted privileges. They had to trick us. And they tricked us into becoming a naturalized citizen of the United States. And then they could claim that we had voluntarily volunteered to be a servant of the U.S. government. So we were tricked into buying some other grain and a fire engine. Benjamin Franklin told us they would deceive us with words. We were not told that we did this when we voluntarily asked for the Socialist Security Card issued by the government of the United States. The American people have been told that they were required to obtain this card. But there are experts in federal law that can find no such law passed by Congress requiring them to do so. So that means that the American people voluntarily signed up for the card and the Socialist Security benefits. And when they did, they became a naturalized citizen of the United States and therefore became subject to the jurisdiction of the tyrannical government. And the reason we did this was because we believed we had to. But there is no law requiring anyone to obtain a Socialist Security card. It is also important to point out that those who have done the research into this problem have discovered that there is no law requiring the citizens of the various states of the Union to pay federal income taxes either. But understand, so far this is not proof, it's only research. Because it is my opinion that there will never be a test case where a jury finds that the income tax is illegal, because it can be assumed that the government would not want to make that truth known to the American people. I am a self-employed writer who does not have an employer, and since I have no salary, I cannot deduct taxes from a payroll. So I must make an estimated tax payment each quarter to the Internal Revenue System. And I do this on a tax form number 1040 ES. There is a paragraph in the printed instructions that reads, "Who must make estimated tax payments?" These rules apply to U.S. citizens. Notice that the IRS says that these rules are rules and not laws. And secondly, notice that these rules apply to U.S. citizens. That must mean that if you are not a naturalized citizen of the United States, nor born in Washington, D.C., these rules do not apply to you, because only U.S. citizens must pay the income tax. Notice that I am not saying that you should stop paying income taxes. I'm saying that it appears as if the income tax must be paid by those who have voluntarily become a naturalized citizen of the United States by applying for a Socialist Security card. Let me just repeat what Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 authorizes Congress to do. Congress shall have the power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. And that is unlimited power. They have the power to enforce law where there is no law. Everything that Congress is doing today is constitutional. Remember, I will repeat it. They have unlimited power, and it was given to them by our founding fathers. And who were our founding fathers? They were members of the Masonic Lodge, the Order of the Quest, and or the Illuminati. Let me add the final piece of the puzzle to convince you that I'm right. The 10th Amendment reads, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states or to the people. That means that if the Constitution did not specifically list the power in Article 1, Section 8, Congress does not have the power. That means the power has to be specifically delegated, and if it is not specifically delegated, the Congress does not have the power. End of Part 2. Please go to disc number 2 for Part 3. America's Secret Destiny, Part 3 of 4. This is James Madison, the 4th President of the United States. He has been called the father of the Constitution during the deliberations on this document. He, along with Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, were asked to write a series of articles for a newspaper in New York City as an effort to explain the type of government they were creating. These essays have been published as the Federalist Papers so we can know what our founding fathers were thinking as they wrote the Constitution. And Mr. Madison discussed the delegated powers in Article 1, Section 8 with these words. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state government are numerous and indefinite. So Madison was saying that the only powers the United States has are few and defined, meaning they have to be listed. And if they are not listed, the United States does not have them. And to put the final argument to Madison's position, I would like to quote the 10th Amendment to the Constitution once again. It reads, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states or the people. So Congress only has delegated powers, or in the words of James Madison, these powers are few and defined. But Congress has funded the following items: stem cell research, space capsules, Hubble space telescopes, and trips to the moon, amongst other things. Where is the delegated power to do each of these things? If the Constitution does not specifically say Congress shall have the power to tax the people for stem cell research, we now have to discuss the difference between a person and being a people. We used to be called people, and now we are called persons, and there is an important distinction between the two words. I will not spend a lot of time on this, but I will show you that there is a difference. People are sovereign, living under God-given rights, free to voluntarily become a slave anytime we want. Only involuntary servitude is not permitted. If you want to become a slave, you are free to do so. Now, with that understanding, we can now discuss the 14th Amendment. That one reads, all persons. Notice that the word is changed from people to persons. We know persons are individuals living under government-granted privileges. I have to now define the two words right and privilege. A right is the ability to act morally without asking permission. A privilege is the ability to act morally, but only after permission has been granted. When a person is sovereign, he does not need to ask in 1865 and 1868 after the Civil War. Let's examine the 13th Amendment first. It reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States. Now, slavery is a situation where one person has lost his freedom to another. A synonym of slavery is involuntary servitude, meaning when a person is forced to serve another without the first person's consent. Involuntary means that the person does not want to do what he's being forced to do. But notice that by these two definitions, voluntary servitude is permissible. That means that we are